From the moment you started sensing things no one else could, it felt like a curse, didn't it? Not facts or data the kind you could point to and say, see, this is what's happening. No, this was raw feeling. You'd walk into a room and immediately feel betrayal hanging in the air before a single word was spoken. You'd sense pain hovering long before it arrived. And when it finally did, nobody remembered you tried to warn them. You read people like open books, but when you shared what you saw, they called you paranoid. This is more than just intuition. It's a conflict, a war between what you deeply know and what the world lets you say out loud. Carl Jung didn't call this a gift, he called it a burden, one so heavy it can fracture your very psyche. Most folks live in just one world, the surface one, the one everyone agrees is real. But you live in two worlds. There's the surface one people pretend to see, and beneath that, the one where lies fester, where futures scream silently, and where truth never asks for permission. And here's the catch: if you don't learn how to carry that hidden truth properly, it will burn you up from the inside out. This isn't about a personality type. This is survival. You see the lie well before it's even spoken, without someone blinking or shifting nervously. You feel it, in the silence between words, in the way their eyes dodge the truth before their mouth even opens. You don't always know how you know these things. You just know. You wake from dreams that haven't happened yet. You carry grief that isn't yours. You absorb fear in rooms where everyone else seems to be laughing and trusting, but your mind wasn't built to just glaze over what's on the surface. This is the hidden cost of being deeply intuitive. The clearer your vision gets, the more pain you carry, because what others deny, you endure. What they dismiss, you hold inside. Carl Jung warned about this kind of mind. He didn't call it talented. He called it a psychic burden, a razor's edge few are born with, and even fewer make it through. While most people live anchored in what they can see and touch, you straddle two realities, the one that everyone else accepts, and the one underneath, that quietly screams its truths. You're not just intuitive, you're exposed to patterns no one taught you to see, wounds no one admits exist, and truths no one dares say aloud. This is the part of being gifted no one tells you about. It's not about light and power, it's about shadow and pressure. And the more you see, the lonelier you get. It doesn't start with a diagnosis or a label, it starts with a feeling that something is off. Even as a child, you were the one noticing anger before anyone raised their voice. You'd sit silently while your mind was hearing arguments that hadn't even happened yet. At 7 years old, you carried emotions that felt decades older. Your dreams weren't about flying or falling like other kids. They were visions, breakups, losses, tragedies you foresaw quietly and without warning. No one told you this was possible. No one explained how painful it would be to feel so deeply and carry so much that wasn't even your own. At first, you thought everyone experienced this. Surely, everyone recognized tension before it started. Everyone saw the cracks behind smiles. Slowly, reality peeled away all these assumptions. You tried to explain, but people looked at you like you were making it up. Too sensitive, too intense, too much. Family dismissed you. Teachers labeled you a distraction. Friends laughed it off. Sounds familiar? So you hid it. And that's when the real isolation began. Carl Jung called people like you intuitive introverts. Those who see not through their five senses, but through a quiet inner knowing, an unconscious connection that cannot be explained with logic or facts. You don't analyze the world, you absorb it. But as time goes on, something darker creeps in. The line between your feelings and others starts to blur. You cry after touching someone's hand and don't know why. You walk into a room and feel panic that isn't yours. You start questioning yourself. Am I gifted, or am I losing my mind? Jung saw this over and over. People born with this psychic radar often grow up without a map, overwhelmed and ungrounded, doubted by everyone, including themselves. When no one recognizes your experience, you start to question its reality. You split yourself in two. The normal you who smiles, nods, pretends, and the real you who decodes every emotional moment in secret. But the moment you realize you're different wasn't when you first saw too much. It was the day you tried to speak your truth and met with silence. You carry a perception no one else sees, a sensitivity no one understands, and a truth that haunts you. You were never taught how to survive this, because this isn't just intuition. It's a mirror to the unconscious. and most spend their whole lives trying not to look. There. Carl Jung believed people weren't blank slates. Instead, we come into this world with psychic blueprints already etched inside us, maps that define how we perceive, feel, and exist. And one of the rarest blueprints is the intuitive introvert. He taught that every psyche operates through 4 core functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Most people lean heavily on sensation. They trust what they can touch, see, and measure. Their reality is anchored in the physical world. But your dominant function is introverted intuition, and that's something very different. It's based not on external experience, but on the unconscious world, which means you don't just see what's in front of you, you see what lies beneath it, not the behavior, but the motive, not the words, but the energy behind them, not the outcome, but the unseen forces shaping it. While others ask, what's happening? You ask, what does this mean? Jung called this intuition directed toward inner objects. Images and symbols that don't exist outside but define what lives in the unconscious. In other words, you see the blueprint before the house is built. You perceive archetypes before they play out, like the mother, the wounded child, the false king, the savior complex, and not in fairy tales, but in your friends, your partner, your co-workers. To others, this looks like overthinking. To you, it's pattern recognition. In a symbolic language, your mind doesn't process these insights like math equations. They come like a persistent dream you can't shake. A sentence heavy with hidden meaning. One glance that tells an entire story while others are focused on bricks. You see the blueprints. That's the gift. But it's also the beginning of the danger. Because while you dominate in intuition, your weakest function is sensation, your connection to the physical here and now. Everyone else uses their body like a compass. They feel hunger, tiredness, temperature, but the intuitive introvert floats above the scene. Your body is present, but your attention lives in the symbolic realm, tracking energy shifts and emotional undercurrents you can't always explain. And the more this happens, the less grounded you become. Jung warned about this imbalance. Without roots in the physical world, intuitive introverts grow aloof. They disconnect not only from people but from reality itself. Time slips away. You forget to eat. Your body fades into a ghostly presence. You start questioning what's real and what isn't, because your inner world feels sharper, louder, and more vivid than the one in front of you. But this isn't madness, it's the cost of seeing too much. The more your mind moves in symbols, the more detached you become from sensation, anchor, and gravity. You lose the stabilizing force that whispers, this is here, this is now, this is real. Without that anchor, your gift mutates, your insights spiral out of control. What once felt like a blessing starts to feel like a storm inside you that no peace can calm. It doesn't hit you all at once. One day, you just start noticing things everyone else misses. But instead of awe, they get uneasy. You walk into a room and feel the energy dip. The roles seem scripted. Someone laughs too loudly. Another hides behind a smile. You try to speak out, but they look like you've shattered the moment. So you stop. You learn the unspoken rules every intuitive introvert carries like invisible scars. Smile, nod, pretend. You become a master at acting tones, mirroring rhythms. They talk about the weather while you quietly map the cracks hidden in their psyches. Because if you say too much, they leave. If you look too deep, they run. If you reveal what lies beneath, they call you intense, dramatic, paranoid, so you keep it all inside. One foot stays in their world of handshakes and small talk, while the other drifts deeper into the symbolic realm, the realm of archetypes, emotional undercurrents, unspoken motives, and unseen forces. It's a split reality. You live in between. To everyone else, you seem calm, quiet, maybe a bit distant, but inside it's chaos. You carry the grief of strangers, secrets no one says aloud, warning signs no one else can read. It's not poetic, it's draining. You feel lonely in crowds, empty in conversations, spiritually starved in a noise-obsessed culture. And the worst part isn't that people misunderstand you, it's that you start wondering if you even belong at all. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He said the intuitive introvert becomes an enigma to others because their inner reality is so rich, so complex, so in tune with forces beyond the immediate, that they become strangers in their own world. You're not absent, you're just somewhere else, thinking in metaphors while others argue facts, feeling energies while others chase goals. whispering with symbols while others shout opinions. And after a while, it stops feeling like something you do and becomes who you are. It's not a phase or mood or quirk. It's your mind's way of navigating the world, but it comes at a cost. The more you pretend to belong in the ordinary, the more you betray the extraordinary perception that makes you unique. So you live between two worlds, not fully in either, not fully seen, not fully safe. You are the bridge, but bridges aren't destinations. They're just spaces in between. And if you stay in that space too long, something inside you starts to break. Under the weight of being too much for this world and too invisible within it. You were given sight but no shield. You were given truth but no guide. And that's the danger, because seeing too much without knowing how to carry it turns your mind into a battlefield. Jung spent decades studying what happens next. He discovered 3 psychological traps, each subtle, seductive, and devastating. If you don't see them coming, they'll turn your gift into your downfall. First up, archetypal. Inflation. You stop just seeing the pattern and start believing you are the pattern. At first, it's subtle. You sense more than others. Notice what they miss. Feel what no one voices. You realize you're almost always right. You feel special, chosen, necessary. Maybe you are, but slowly, something shifts. You quit sensing the archetype and start becoming it. You're no longer just intuitive. You're the prophet, the wounded healer, the savior, the seer who suffers because others don't understand. It feels noble, purposeful, like your pain is part of a cosmic mission. You pull away, not out of rejection but a sense of superiority. They wouldn't get it. They're just not ready. They need me, even if they hate me. But what's really happening is inflation. Your ego merges with archetypal stories, mythic roles from the collective unconscious, and you start believing they're you. Jung called this the most dangerous state for intuitive types. It's possession. By the unconscious, you're no longer a person with a perception. You become the perception. And once that happens, there's no space for feedback, growth, or grounding, only symbolic identity and the slow erosion of your true self beneath it. How to spot it? You feel secretly superior but misunderstood. You treat your suffering as proof of your sacred role. You reject help, convinced no one else understands. You speak in absolutes. Archetypes replace nuance. You're not broken, you're inflated. And until you step out of the myth you've mistaken for yourself, you can't find your way back. The second trap, psychic contamination. You don't just feel others, you become them. The intuitive introvert isn't just sensitive. They absorb like a psychic sponge. You enter a room and soak up everyone's psychological material. You sense someone's grief, suddenly feel it in your own body. You pick up unspoken anxiety and begin pacing without knowing why. Someone's trauma becomes your wound to carry. At first, it feels like compassion, you're helping, healing, holding space. But over time, you start to disappear. Your boundaries dissolve. You forget what feelings are yours. You carry guilt, shame, grief that aren't yours. You vanish into other people's stories. You take on their healing. You think if you just love more, fix more, give more, they'll change. But what you're really doing is running from the terrifying job of facing yourself. You're so tuned in to others that you lose your own shape. Worse, being needed becomes your only proof you matter. Jung didn't call this empathy. He called it psychic contamination, a collapse of boundaries between self and other, ending in exhaustion, emotional fusion, and loss of identity. How to spot it? You feel guilty for things that aren't your fault. You struggle to say no or feel selfish. When you do, you don't know where others end and you begin. You keep people close not because you love them, but because they need you. You're not too sensitive, you're too open. And if you don't close the door, sometimes you'll bleed out, helping people who won't even notice you're drowning. The final trap Jung warned about is symbolic collapse. This happens when everything takes on meaning and nothing feels real anymore. You start seeing signs everywhere. Every song lyric feels like a message. Every coincidence, a cosmic hint. Every delay, every bird, every number is proof of destiny in motion. At first, this feels like intuition, but over time it turns into obsession. You begin to distrust reality. You can't tell if what you feel is prophecy or paranoia. You interpret dreams as fate. You treat anxiety like revelation. You confuse trauma for spiritual clarity. You enter a state Jung feared most, psychic fragmentation. He encountered patients who lost the ability to separate symbolic reality from concrete reality. They were tormented by meaning, because when everything means something, you lose the ability to relax. You stop living, you start decoding constantly, and reality becomes unbearable, not because it's empty, but because it's overflowing. How do you spot it? You feel anxious without a clear reason, but you're convinced it's a sign. You overinterpret everything. Nothing feels random. You distrust facts. You think your intuition must be right. You're afraid of being wrong because your identity depends on being right. This is psychic burnout. It's not a meltdown or a breakdown. It's a slow drift away from shared reality. Unless you relearn how to ground yourself, you'll float so far into the symbolic realm that you forget how to live. On the outside, you function like normal. You wake up, you go to work, you answer texts, you laugh at the right times. No one suspects anything is wrong, but inside you feel like a ghost in a suit that fits too well. You've learned to survive with your gift not by showing it, but by hiding it. You see what others don't. You sense truths never spoken. You pick up energy shifts, so subtle they'd sound crazy if you had spoke them aloud. So you keep your knowing to yourself. On the outside, you look calm, composed, maybe even wise, but inside, you're carrying too much. No one sees what you see, and worse, no one sees what it costs you to keep seeing. You live two lives. Outside you play the person everyone expects. Inside, you're the seer, always absorbing, decoding, enduring a reality no one else notices, and eventually, it wears you down. You feel isolated even in love, disconnected even in friendship, surrounded by people but utterly alone in your experience. This is the psychic no man's land. Jung warned about it, not because it's dramatic, but because it's silent. The world doesn't see your suffering. You're not melting down, you're fading. And this is where most intuitive introverts get stuck, because it's manageable. You've mastered the mask. You've learned to feel everything without reacting. You pretend to fit in, but it comes at a huge cost. You forget how to speak your own truth. You doubt your perceptions. Somewhere along the way, you convince yourself this is just the price of being gifted, but that's a lie. This stage was never meant to be your destination. It was only your test. The turning point isn't when someone else sees you. It's when you decide your perception deserves care, not shame. Because the truth is you can't unsee what you've seen, but you can learn to carry it differently. Not as a burden that breaks you, but as a truth that transforms you. That's what stage 3 is about. Not surviving what you are, but integrating it so it serves you rather than swallowing you whole. Most people never make it here. They drown in their perceptions, or shut them down completely. But if you survived the isolation, the psychic traps, the emotional chaos, you can find another way. One that doesn't numb your gift, but teaches you to carry it without losing yourself. This is stage 3. Integration, the return of your power. Rooted, contained, translated, directed. You don't stop being intuitive. You start being sovereign. To get there, you must master 3 practices Carl Jung believed were essential for people like you. First, reclaim the body. Sensation practice. Bring your intuition into the body to contain it safely. Intuition lives in symbols, but survival lives in the physical. You can't live fully in the archetypal realm. Your visions need a container. Your body is that container. The more you ground yourself in sensation, movement, smell, rhythm, the more stable your inner world becomes. Jung warned intuitive introverts often have an underdeveloped connection to sensation. They float, dissociate, forget to eat, lose track of feeling present. But sensation isn't stupid, it's sacred. It's your nervous system's way of saying, you're here, you're alive, you're safe. Ways to reconnect to your body. Walking. Meditation. Noticing the pressure of each step. Cooking. Experiencing smells, tastes, and textures mindfully. Gardening. Letting soil and growth remind you of physical cycles. Breath. Work. Using your breath to pull your mind back from spirals, cold showers, or tactile grounding. Returning to here and now. When lost in symbols, this isn't about becoming a sensation type. It's about anchoring psychic perception in something solid, so it doesn't overwhelm you. Building this foundation lets you hold what your intuition brings in. The second practice, Jung emphasized, is translating your vision in creative, verbal expression. You have to give form to the formless. What you see inside isn't meant to stay locked away. If you keep it in, It rots, it becomes overwhelming, heavy. Intuitive insight is energy, and energy has to move. That's why translation is vital. Whether through words, images, music, philosophy, or design, you must turn what you perceive into something real, something tangible. Form protects. Jung believed that when unconscious content is trapped inside, it gains power over you. But when you express it, give it art, voice, structure, it loses its chaos and becomes wisdom. How can you translate your perception? Write. Journal. Poetry. Storytelling. Paint. Even abstractly. Let symbols flow out. Teach. Share ideas, philosophies, frameworks. Create, design rituals, systems, and models to help others understand the unseen. You don't have to explain everything, you just have to express it. And when you do, something miraculous happens. You become a bridge between the invisible and visible, between what can't be spoken and what must be said. Expression isn't just creativity, it's survival. It's your pressure valve. Your translator, your soul's way of saying, this is too big for me to hold alone. Let me make it real. The third key practice is building energetic boundaries. Conscious permeability. Sensitivity isn't a weakness, it's a signal system, but only when you learn to control the volume. This is the most advanced skill for intuitive introverts, because you don't just need protection from outside, you need protection from yourself. You absorb people, feel too much, project, merge, vanish. But integration doesn't mean becoming numb, it means becoming aware of your openings and closings. Jung called this conscious permeability. Decide when to let the unconscious in and when to shut the door. How do you create energetic boundaries? Visualization rituals. Imagine psychic shields before entering chaotic environments. Closing ceremonies. After emotional interactions. Wash your hands. Light a candle. Symbolically release what's not yours. Journaling. Filters. Write down insights. Then label them. Intuition. Projection. Anxiety. Pattern. Ritual. Separation. Change clothes. Take walks or shift environments between emotional zones. The goal isn't to block everything, it's to filter, to let in what's true and release what's noise. The more you practice this, the more you reclaim your identity, because integration means this: you can sense what others feel without confusing it for your own. You can see deeply into someone's wound without carrying the responsibility to heal it. You can be open without being empty. You can be sensitive without shattering. This is what Jung called your standpoint, a centered, sovereign self, a place from which you can relate to the unconscious without being possessed by it. Integration doesn't erase your gift, it sharpens it, refines it, turns it into something you can live with and live through. You're no longer drowning in perception, you're guiding it, using it, choosing it. You become the eye in the storm, not because the storm ends, but because you stop identifying with the lightning. You saw too much, you felt too deeply, you carried what others couldn't even name, and you paid for it with your peace, your relationships, your sense of belonging. But here's what you must understand: you were never broken, you weren't damaged, you were initiated, not into some mystical fantasy, but into the brutal, beautiful reality of what it means to be an intuitive soul in a world obsessed with surface-level noise. Carl Jung didn't see you as flawed, he saw you as a bridge, a rare person born to walk between two worlds, the unconscious and the conscious, the invisible and the visible, the truth and the story. But even a bridge has weight, and that weight must be carried, because insight without structure becomes suffering. Sensitivity without protection becomes collapse. This journey, it was never about getting rid of what you feel, it's about learning to hold it differently, to contain it, to translate it, to use it. The ones who survive stage 3, the ones who ground their vision, who speak their truth, who choose conscious boundaries, become the translators of the human experience, not just for themselves, but for everyone still stuck in the storm. So here's the call to you: which stage are you in? Are you discovering your gift? Are you drowning in it? Or are you finally ready to integrate it, to stop surviving your depth and start living through it? Your voice is the map someone else is waiting for. Speak it, write it, share it, even if your voice shakes, because you were never meant to stay hidden. You were meant to become a mirror, not one reflecting what's easy to see, but one revealing what was always there waiting to be revealed. You are not cursed, you are called, but first you must survive. And so, To wrap it all up, you were never meant to carry this burden alone. You were never broken or damaged. You were born a bridge between worlds, between the unconscious and the conscious, the invisible and the visible, the truth and the story. But even a bridge must learn how to carry its weight, because insight without structure is suffering. Sensitivity without protection leads to collapse. Your journey isn't about getting rid of your feelings, it's about learning how to hold them differently, to contain them, to translate them, to use them. The ones who make it through, who ground their vision, speak their truth, create conscious boundaries. They become translators of human experience, not just for themselves, but for everyone still lost in the storm. So here's my question to you. Where are you on this path? Are you just discovering your gift? Are you drowning in it? Or are you ready to integrate it, to stop surviving your depth and start living through it? Your voice, your story is the map someone else is waiting for. So speak it, write it, share it, even if it shakes, because you were never meant to stay hidden. You were meant to be a mirror, not a mirror of what's easy to see, but a mirror of what's always been there, waiting to be revealed. You are not cursed, you are called, but first, you must survive.